Hey everyone, my name is Michele Lim and I am a stand-up comedian from Sydney, Australia. Okay, so I might not be the funniest person in the world. I'm probably like the third most funniest person in the world, alright? But I am pretty funny. I have done my own shows. I did my own show last year for the Sydney Comedy Festival, which sold out, which was cool. I got some really good reviews. I had lots of people coming up and telling me that I was funny, who I didn't know, which was bonus. And I do a lot of open mic nights when I'm trying to write my new material and when I want to test my new material. So I often go to these open mic nights and I see a lot of people trying to do stand-up comedy for the first time, which is cool. Like, I think it's really cool that you do what you want to do. But I have noticed that lots of people make the same mistakes at these open mic nights. And doing stand-up comedy is like bungee jumping, right? You got to make sure you do it right the first time. Otherwise, you probably don't want to try it again. So I put together a lot of hints. I put together 5 hints and tips, which I think you should pay attention to and kind of keep in mind when you're trying to write your first set. So hopefully this helps you write your first set and inspires you to get on stage and do stand-up comedy, because it's really cool and it's a really good feeling. So let's get into it. Okay, so we're going to go from the top. The first rule of stand-up comedy is you got to make them laugh and you got to make them laugh fast. So when you first do open mic nights, it's very hard because you only have 5 minutes, and sometimes it feels like 5 minutes isn't that much time, but when you're up on stage, it actually is quite a lot of time which you can use to make them laugh. You got to make sure that when you're telling your stories and you have a punchline, you get to that punchline pretty quickly in the first couple of, maybe even like half a minute from when you start, because otherwise people are going to lose interest and they're not going to pay attention and it'll be all downhill from there. Trust me, I've tried. I've had bad sets as well, so make them laugh and make them laugh fast. Something that I find a lot of new comedians do is they try to tell a story, but the story doesn't have it's not very structured and they don't have clear points where the audiences are supposed to laugh. I find that lots of people probably think that it's a funny story because their friends thought it was really funny and maybe they'll try to tell it in front of an audience. And it's very different trying to tell a story to your friends who know you and they know your personality. And I'm sure it's awesome. They know your personality, they know your idiosyncrasies, and they're going to be like, oh, that's such a funny story because I know Michelle hates having peanuts in her salad or something like that. But if you're in front of a new and totally random audience, they're not going to be able to understand those points. So you have to make sure that it's an actual funny story with, punchlines built into that story, I suppose. So the next thing I see a lot of people do is they stand up and they'll introduce themselves by saying something like, oh, hello, I'm Michele Lim. This is the first time I've done stand-up comedy and I'm actually really not that funny. Like, don't ever say that to an audience. It's not what they want to hear, okay? That's kind of like you going in for surgery and you turn around and the doctor's like, oh, hey, surgery's not really my thing. Okay, it's something that you don't want to hear when you go to a stand-up comedy place. So if you think you're not funny, don't do stand-up comedy. And if you think you are funny, then don't second-guess yourself. Just be strong and get into it, man. Like, don't waste time. Don't waste the audience's time telling them something they don't want to hear. Okay, the third thing that I hear people say a lot is, well, it's something that I've done in the past as well, but it's kind of, I've done it unintentionally. So sometimes you're telling a story or you're telling a joke and you realize you've missed out an important part, or you kind of like screwed up this, you screwed up the punchline, so it's just not going to work, and sometimes you just got to be like, stuff it, like, don't worry about it, I'm just going to move on to the next thing, which is fine. If you do that, that's fine, you can move on. But I wouldn't use that sort of structure where you're telling a joke and then you trail off and then you go, oh yeah, actually, nah, don't worry about it. I wouldn't use that as your whole joke. If you do that, then you should probably just stick to writing actual proper jokes. Okay, so the fourth point is awkward humor, which is a personal preference of mine, but I don't really like awkward humor, and I don't like the people that go on and they're deliberately trying not to be funny to be funny. So that's just a personal thing, and I know a lot of my friends really like awkward humor. So if it works for you and you've got bits in your set where you think, okay, I'm going to do this and that's going to get the laugh, and it's all kind of structured and you know what you're doing, then fine, go for it. That's really cool. But if you're trying to do stand-up comedy and you're not really sure what to do, and that's what you're going to try to do, then you might need to work on it a little bit more, because from all the open mic nights that I've seen, people that do awkward humor, they don't get very big laughs. They don't get very strong laughs. So maybe just work on it, or find a niche audience that will like the awkward humor as well. As long as you make sure that you know what the audience is laughing at and you've got some sort of structure and some sort of rationale behind what you're doing. If you know what you're doing, then go for it. If you don't know what you're doing, then write better jokes because they're not very funny. Okay, what? Sorry. Okay. Okay, so this is the fifth and most important rule about stand-up comedy. This is very important. So the most important rule about stand-up comedy is to be likable, okay? So that doesn't mean you have to be nice. There's a lot of people out there and they're dicks, right? But they're likable dicks, so it's okay. So whatever they say, the audience is like, oh my god, he's such a dick, but it's true and it's really funny. So that's fine. You don't have to be likable. You do have to be likable. You just don't have to be. You don't have to be nice. You can be mean. You just have to be a likable, mean person. So what's really important is when you do stand-up comedy, you have to form a rapport with the audience very fast, and that's something that you do when you walk on stage, and you have to make sure that you're not pretentious, you're not condescending towards the audience, and you're not trying to distance yourself. You got to assimilate with the audience and make sure that they are taken along with this journey. And if you take them along with this journey and they like you, then it's going to be an awesome ride. Everyone's going to think you're really funny. You'll have a really great time, and they'll be a lot more forgiving when your jokes aren't funny anyway, because they'll be like, oh well, you know, he's a likable person anyway, so he wasn't super funny, but it was entertaining. I was still entertained by him, so that's really good. Cool. So definitely don't try to be too cool for school and too laid back. You got to be engaged, and you got to show that you want to be there. Otherwise, they're not gonna. The audience is not going to appreciate you as much as they could. Okay, this is the bonus level of the tips. So this is also a personal thing, but if you're new to stand-up comedy, I would advise against doing relationship material unless it's really, really funny and you've tried it out and heaps of people are like, oh, that is a really funny observation or joke. If it's going to be like the stock standard, oh, I'm single, or my girlfriend broke up with me, or my boyfriend broke up with me, like, just don't do it. I think you should just stick to trying other things, because that's something that a lot of comedians, I guess, when they start out, talk about. And chances are there'll be like 5 other people on the same night that open with that line, and you don't want to be the 6th person that opens with the line, because the audience will be very bored of that same structure or idea. So try to do something a little bit more original, and hopefully it'll get better laughs. Okay, that's it from me. If you have any questions, you can put them in the comment section below. Don't be a troll. And yeah, I hope it helped. And have a good gig. See ya.